Turn it on now and let it run in the background. All right, it's 5:30, so I'm going to go ahead and start. Tonight we're going to be looking at Chapter 7. I'm actually switching something on you. We were going to look at text and dimensions revisited, and we might make it to text, but I'm thinking that will come closer to, and I'll post this for you guys later tonight. Let's see if I get back into Ivy Tech, AutoCAD, session. I think it's still in one, but where I saved it, sort by date modified. I swapped some things out. So let's see. We are in session 6 this week. And here's what I've swapped out. So I took 6 and we're going to be doing the model space, paper space, plotting from paper space, model, and layout tabs, and covering basically all of 7. And for our homework, we'll be doing some PDFs of our drawings. And text added to drawing will be next week. There's some more instructions online about making a drawing template for session 6 as well. And then session 7 will look more back at annotation, text dimensions, array, which we had to skip over because we ran out of time in a previous week. And I think dimensions and explaining why yours didn't turn out how I was hoping they would will make more sense after we talk about model space and paper space today. So I am going to go ahead and start talking about chapter 7. And I might bounce back and forth between my drawing with everything in it and kind of a new drawing so you don't have to look at my crazy tabs, which just shows you how much I do use the paper space layout tabs. So if I went back to my drawing 1, usually, and I'm going to delete these, so I'm really looking at what you'll look at when you, even with your drawing. So your drawing right now, it'll have all the boathouse items in it, but we haven't done anything with these tabs yet unless you've done something on your own. So you should see model, layout 1, possibly layout 2 that are automatically brought in with your drawing. Model is what we've been working in for the past couple of weeks. It's where we do our actual one-to-one drawing. So we draw at full scale, and the status bar at the lower right is where we find model, and then layout 1, layout 2, and whatever layouts we end up building into our drawing. So also you can see down here, it tells us that model is current in the grayer space at the bottom. But here's how we'll toggle back and forth between layout and model space. and you simply click on those tabs to go back and forth. There's also another way that we'll talk about using this button later on in the session. So why we use layouts? We want to convey our drawing, which is one-to-one, and I don't have anything really fancy in here. I might even go in just for the sake of it and pretend I am you, and I've got the majority of all this stuff home, and I can use my clipboard, copy, and go into my drawing one and clipboard paste. Hopefully, it might be too much information. Clipboard, paste. I see it thinking. And then I'm going to zoom out and see if it actually brought it in. There we go. It did indeed bring it in. Okay, so I have everything you have, and then the similar layouts at the bottom. And we've drawn this in one-to-one, which means it can be scaled to any size that, say, an architect firm would be asking of us to give them with our furniture layouts, or if we actually did these drawings, a client might want them at a printable, readable scale. So that's our, for instance, our most common is 1/4 inch equals 1 foot 0 inches. And when we're in here, we're in one-to-one, and you see it down here where it's telling you annotative one-to-one scales what we're drawing at. But in our layout paper space is where we get to make the decision to change the size. So we can do that by double clicking in here, and I'm kind of giving you a brief overview before the technical overview. And down here, there's a viewport scale, which is where you have the opportunity to choose those different sizes. We're not dealing with the ratios. We'll be dealing with the actual architectural, the 1/4 inch equals 1 foot, 1/2 inch equals 1 foot for kitchen and bath. There's some people who are in that class right now. We use that for our elevations and drawings. So 1/4 inch equals 1 foot is the main one that we want to use. And if I click on that, I didn't have anything pulled up, so I might want to at least get close to something. So to show you what it would look like at 1/4 inch equals 1 scale. So the layout tabs that are brought in, they usually default to 8.5 by 11 size. But if we tried to go to a 1/4 inch equals 1 foot, the issue is, wow, look how big that would be on a piece of paper, which has been my struggle with you guys trying to give you something you can read but still print at home. So we'll talk about how to adjust everything as we go through the chapter and build a layout that's going to allow us to print the entire building in the amount of space that we have, and also creating a title block to go along with it. So I've already covered where we can find model and then the different layout tabs. But what else would we use this for? It says in the book that we can use it for if we want to put schedules, notes. They do their notes and dimensioning in paper space. So we're going to look at one type of note style tonight, hopefully, and how you would use that in paper space. We can also print to the different scales that I've talked about. It says viewports are used to view specific areas of a drawing according to 7.3. They can be different sizes, shapes, and the border defining the viewport acts as an object which we can put on its own layer and have a color or resize or move. So I just want to check and make sure really quick before I move forward, because this is a new drawing. Okay, I am in architectural, and I set that up at the beginning of the class. So there are options to the viewports that you can see on 7.3. If we want to find or add a viewport or pick a size or type, we go to the Insert tab. And then from the Insert tab, we also have the option to, one second, let me get out of my blocks. Hold on. 1 minute. My mouse is giving me a weird thing on my side that you can't see. So not the insert tab here where you can create a block. So I'm going to show you that later, which we would use for drafting our title blocks in here, and you'd go to insert and create block. But you actually go to layout tab, and then from the layout is where you can pick the viewport rectangular, creates rectangular paper space viewport from the layout viewports panel, or it has that drop down menu where you can choose polygonal, and that's shown at 7.5 or 7.3. Why you'd want to do that is sometimes I don't oftentimes put my title block down here in the corner, but it'll cut some of that space out of this block. So if you want to not have your viewport affected by that, you can shape it around your title block. So you would simply come in and collect polygonal, I don't know a great way to say it, but you could draw whatever shape you wanted your next viewport to be and hit enter, and then it'll be in that shape. So that's pretty neat. You're not stuck with a rectangle if you don't want a rectangle. It could be good for some presentation purposes where you want to do a circle cut out in something, or a smaller rectangle, or a grid of drawings next to each other. But we also have the plain old rectangle. We just go back to our drop-down menu and select the rectangle and add a viewport. So if I have nothing, again, if I left click rectangular and choose it, I left click my first point, and then it says down here in my command line, viewport specify opposite corner. So I'm simply left clicking, and then I've created a viewport. If I want to go through all the steps of the polygonal, I would come through and it's just saying specify a start point. So I could even end up doing some weird mountainous arrangement, and it doesn't matter. It just wants you to keep going with points, unless down here you were doing arc or length, which we're not really concerned with for the basics. So just left clicking for points, ending at snapping. So we want to make sure our O snaps are on and endpoints selected. And then I hit enter to finish that shape. And now I have another viewport in a different shape and style. So that's one way to do it. Let's say we know that we like our rectangular viewport that's here. We could cheat, I do believe, and if we go to home and copy, it'll treat it like anything else we copy. Now this works for version 2014. When I'm at work, it doesn't work that way. So I'd have to use clipboard copy, oddly enough. But for you guys in 2014, it's just like a rectangle or a line. When you're in here, you can copy it using the copy tool. If for some reason you want to have a grid, you could delete out this, and you want them all to be the same size and nice and orderly, you'd simply turn your ortho on down here at the bottom, and then go up to copy and select your viewport, hit enter, and then drag it and drop it in the grid that you want it to be in. So I could go over, and then if I wanted this one, I'd have to start over. Or I could have just made this set and copied both of them over. But it's a nice solution for if you want to show individual spaces close up, or you want to see all the drawings mini, you could do that too. So they're all miniature on one plane, just to show a teacher or a client that what you're completing and that how far you on each drawing, and just a view you could send as a PDF. So that's a very easy way to copy your viewports. So looking back to the book, I kind of get ahead of them sometimes as I'm going through, but another way that they say to do it, so they say you can use layout, and if you had nothing here, for some reason your viewports got deleted or didn't come in with the layout, you can go to new. So layout, new layout, creates and modifies drawing layout tabs. So that will create a layout tab for you if you delete it. So new layout. And then it wants us to enter our layout name. We could say design, enter. And so that's for when it deletes out. If I didn't have these starting, I could have a design tab for the layout and start over. And then you also have page setup manager up here, which has quite a few options as well. So when I go into my page setup manager, right now it's showing me these options down here with the exception of design. So layout 1, I want to modify it, and we can see it's coming in at a standard paper size of 8.5 by 11. So that's good for you guys, not so good for our drawings when we want to go print them at Triangle Drafting locally or at school. I believe we have a big printer. It's been a while since I've had to print here. We might not. So I think I did do the majority of our printing. If you have to print, that's who I would recommend locally for the people who live in South Bend, but you can always Google architectural drafting places. But Triangle Drafting is who I used when I was here. So for your drawings for me this week, for instance, I want you to send me drawings to PDFs because I'm not going to print all of your drawings, and I don't expect you to turn in printed drawings to me. Eventually for your final, that might be something that we look at doing, maybe not for the entire class, but for 108, I do believe they'll have to print. So drawing to PDF, that will save the PDF in the actual size that you choose for your drawing. Then you'd go to your paper size, and there's so many options. So there's architectural, there's ANSI. If you go up further, there's full bleed. So that's kind of talking about this space to the side, and if it's going edge to edge, and or if there's a bleed that's preventing it, so there's some type of border added into it. For what we're doing, usually I just stick with the arc sizes, and there's a number of sizes within that. So we have C, D, E, and before C would be your 11, 8.5 by 11, then 11 by 17, and then you get into your C, D, E, and E will be the biggest. And then you have D size, which is what is standard for architects and their companies. So I did a series of projects for a local law firm, and I sent them to them on e-size, which was the best way to display it at 1/4 inch, but they preferred that I send it to them on D-size because that's the printer that they have available to them. It's actually what they can plot at the biggest scale, so they couldn't plot my drawings, even though it was what I was used to was 1/4 inch, and they had me size it down to 3/16 and put it on D. So that's all good information to know. I think some of that's on your quiz actually. But for our drawing, we can kind of trial and error just to show you what you could go through trying to figure it out. What's the best size? So again, I'm going to just review. Let's see if I actually had chosen any of that information, and I'll start with a smaller size. So layout, and I want to modify it. Like I said, you're going to come in for your homework, and for the future, even if you're going to print it, you'll make it a PDF and put it on a thumb drive, and they will print it out for you. So this just gives you a savable document. Now notice there's a difference between drawing to PDF, and sometimes you'll just get, and it doesn't show up on here, but I know my computer at home does this to me, and I think some of your lab types might do it, where it's just PDF. We don't want the plain PDF. It has to be drawing to PDF, otherwise it's going to adjust your scale. So even though you're creating a PDF, like PDF Creator, or there is one that just says Adobe PDF. Do not choose that one if that's an option. Make sure it's drawing to PDF. So I select that. And for now, for our trial and error, I know it's bigger than 11 by 17 because, I mean, if 8.5 by 11 wasn't cutting it, I know it's not going to be much better on 11 by 17, but some of us can't conceptualize what 22 by 17 is. Is that much bigger? Is it just the width that's giving us issues? So I'm going to go actually to the arc because that's what I want you to use for your homework, or arch, however you want to think about saying it. And I'm going to choose the 24 by 18 inches. Here's your orientation down here. Landscape is what I want it to print at because our drawing is more width larger than it is tall. Also, it saves paper. when you print wide, otherwise you'll have a lot of excess on a larger printing scale, because for e-size, there's a lot more room to the left and right. So here's some things that they're not covering in the book. We might if we have time. So these are the main things. I'll click OK and then close. So we'll see if it indeed did apply it. I can test it by adding back in a rectangular viewport. And I simply clicked, and I believe it was layout 1. And then we know we want it to be a 1/4 inch. So look, I mean, we can see it did change our layout 1 to be the C size. I can show you the difference between what we had before. I think layout 2 is defaulted to 8.5 by 11 as well, if not 11 by 17. I don't know why my mouse is disappearing on me. Okay, so if I come in here, and the way to get into the model space, so that's the part I'm leaving out by just instructing you as opposed to reading along with the book. All this information is in the book. When I double click in a viewport, and this is the viewport, is what I made a rectangle or a shape. I'm in paper space, but within paper space, I'm in model space. So that's kind of trippy. You can tell you're in model space now because, as we talked about below, it has model showing. If I double click in the negative space, and that's an easy way to get out of it, but stay in my paper space, I can see now that I'm in paper space. So nothing on my drawing will be affected because that darker border isn't highlighted, and I'm not able to move my drawing around like when I double clicked in there. When I double click on the negative space, it's stationary, everything in my drawing stops, and it's basically locked. Although not exactly, there's a tool for that, but it's locked as far as I could type on it, I could do whatever I want, and I'm not moving it around right now. So down here we see paper. You can also toggle by clicking on that button without double click, double click. So when I click the button, now I'm in model because the word shows up at the bottom. It's highlighted in black, and I'm able to move within the space. If I toggle at the bottom again by left clicking the button, model, it switches to paper space. And now that's not highlighted, and nothing moves. When I then click and drag my pan tool, it moves everything. So that's the different ways to get in and out of model space within your layout. And back to paper space. So now that we kind of have that, I was going to show you the difference in size. So I'll come down here and click this. Now I'm in my model space, but nothing's showing up. That'll happen to you guys because it's just been dragged or it automatically zooms, and I can zoom out and try and find it for 100 years. But instead, I'm going to go ahead and use my handy dandy type and zoom, enter, and choose extents. I left clicked extents. I could have typed E. It would have had the same effect. And now I see my entire drawing. So I can choose a similar part of the drawing and then decide to put it at the 1/4 inch equals 1 foot scale, because that's standard for us, our architectural standard as designers. And I see the difference between this teeny tiny 8.5 by 11 versus my C-size paper. Now, C-size paper looks great, but the issue we're going to have with the C-size that I found out as I was trying to put this together for you guys is, one, this doesn't include our title block. And two, not all the drawings are equal to each other. So we have reflected ceiling plan, which doesn't have the extra deck and porch. We have this plan, which is a monster of a plan. And I mean, look at the width and height difference in it. So what's the best paper size to use? I did decide I didn't want to go to E-size because that's very irregular that people are going to use E-size. So D size, since that's what architects use and they like to have their drawings in, wasn't a stretch. So that's what I'm going to ask for in the homework. And we'll look at the difference and what it allows us to do. Since we're in C size right now, you'll see what I'm talking about with this drawing being too big, coming down to my viewport scale, setting it at 1/4. It's nice for the other drawings, but for this, I can't see any of that information about my site plan. So I need kind of a concession that's a little bit bigger than this, but not too big. So I double clicked in this case instead of choosing down here to get out of that space. So let's go ahead and see if we were going to add another tab that's going to be our D size. We could modify layout 2 to be D size and change the name. So now that I've created this, let's talk about tabs really quick before I get too far ahead. You have layout 1. That's not very descriptive at all. So what you could do is left click where it says layout 1 and double click. This is not what they teach in the book, but this is what I use in the field. There's 2 ways to do it. So I'm a big clicker. I double clicked, I backspace the name, and I'm gonna say C size. And that lets me know what it is. I could get more specific as I have more drawings, and that's what you'll see in my boathouse is core patio deck detail. Now, here it says core with hatched walls 8.5 by 11. If I get bigger sizes later, I would add what drawing it is and the size as a prompt to me. So when I'm printing, I don't have to print preview it or print it to figure that out, which is really annoying. When we come in here and we could either make this be D size and modify it like we did that, or completely start a new one and set it up. But we have these already and it's pretty similar. We saw that I set up this design by creating new, so maybe we could even change design. But I don't like the name design. I know I want it to be D size. The other way to do it besides double clicking is right clicking and then left clicking rename. Exact same concept, just 2 different ways of going about it. So I'm going to label this D size, even though I haven't adjusted anything yet. And we'll see what it's at. So let's see if I go to page setup, D size, modify. Here it's trying to default to the school's printer. It might try to default to yours. If it's not 8.5 by 11, you won't want that. So again, I come in and I choose drawing to PDF. I'm going to stick with the arc or arch, whichever way you want to say it. And I'm going to choose the D size of 36 by 24 and make sure my orientation is landscape. And everything else I'm going to leave alone. Here we're not messing with the scale 1:1 because we've set the scale in the layout. So it is going to be 1/4 inch, just ignore this in here. So then I can go ahead and close. So now I have to change my viewport size. If you have existing viewports and you just want to change their sides like an object, we can look at the fact that they have nodes to click on and grab and pull to resize them. For a rectangle, obviously, we'd want our ortho on. Otherwise, when we click our nodes, I don't believe it's, if the ortho's off, that it does nice things. It's a little more fluid, but it still seems to be straight, so it looks okay. I would prefer to have my ortho on and do it in 2 steps, so I know it's perfectly straight from where I started. Now on the D size, so you can zoom and pan and anything you want to do. Again, if you're missing your drawing, zoom extents gets you back to where you need to be. I come down here to the viewport scale and I'm going to choose 1/4 equals 1/2 inch. So for our homework, it's not perfect and it doesn't show everything, but really you're not going to have these dimensions for your site plan, and I feel like it gives you the details of what you need in this drawing, that there's a river, that there is a road over here. So as long as we can see it running from top to bottom, pieces of it, and you don't cut that off, I think D-size will be what we stick with. So that shows it on D-size. Now I have the sizing set up, but we're missing some features that really make it good and usable to us. There's nothing about who's designed this drawing. There's nothing about the firm we work for, if we were working for a firm, or personally our own logo. So if we want to add that information in, we'd want to do it using a title block. And there's a couple ways that we can go about doing that. So we can add a title block by loading one in via a template. And in that case, we could come down here in these tabs, and there was a lot of other options when I right-clicked. There was new layout. So this is the same option as coming up here and clicking new. So it'd give us another tab. There's from template, which is what I was talking about. There's delete. So if I don't want layout 2 because it's just extra information, I could right-click, delete that one. Okay, now it's gone, just C size, D size that I'm trying out. What other options are available in our menu? Select all layouts, activate model tab, page setup manager, so that's this right here. So everything's available in this right click as well as up here in your ribbon. Drafting standard setup, export layout to model, hide layout, and model tabs. So if I did do the from template, I could left click from template. And you're lucky. I had a hard time because I looked in the book on this last week on how I was going to set up your homework assignment for you, and my company has deleted all of these. So I couldn't set it up for you really to show you how I wanted it, but this is one of the options that I'm giving to you because it's a lot better than creating one from complete scratch, although I'll have you doing a smaller version of that for your homework. So when we come in here, there's tutorial iArc. And now I'm quite a bit ahead of the book, or just relaying it to you in another way. But let me see if I can find where they have chosen to use tutorial iArc. On my computer, I didn't even have it. So let's see, it looks like it's on page 721 is where they're talking about bringing in a layout from a template. So tutorial iArc is the one they're suggesting. It should be automatically loaded in with your CAD. If it's not, let me know. I might be able to email it from you as long as I save it to my computer here tonight. But it should be automatic. So if I double click tutorial iArc or one time click it and click open, D-size layout, okay. So it created one called D-size layout, but with this lovely title block on the side that we can use to fill in our information. And they talk about how the 24 by 36 size is the size that is standard for an architectural firm. So let's pretend that's what we're doing. What kind of information does this allow us? Our project, our date, the scale. People want to be able to quickly reference the scale here and check it with their scale for door widths is a big one. I'll be on site and we'll be like, is it actually 36 inches? So that's a good thing to have on your drawing. The sheet, if you have multiple drawings, for instance, when we go to put our PDFs together, you're going to have your core plan, your reflected ceiling plan, and site plan. So you'll have sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3. Project name and address. So the project name is Boathouse. The address could be fictitious. I don't really care if you make that up or not. It could be your address if you want. Firm name and address, that's you. If you want to get creative, you could add a logo. If you have your own company for any reason, you could, I've showed you now on the home tab, you know, the clipboard works with anything. It works with images. You could bring in your logo and paste it over as an image and it will print in the title block. Also, we have our revision issue dates. So that's if a client comes back to me and says, oh, I hated that layout. Could you fix rooms 1 and 2 and mirror the desks so that they're a little bit different? I would put the dates they've had me do the corrections and say possibly why I was correcting, and then record that information and send that to the contractor so they have the most updated drawing. And the client, I keep a running record of what I've had to change in the project. My time, for instance, is billable within my company. So if I have to make revisions, that gets charged as a design fee to the client. So you want to keep track of your revisions on your drawing. Then there's a space for general notes. All title blocks are different. I always white mine out because I'm not trying to pitch my company when I'm at school. So when I send you guys your drawings, they have my logos and everything gone, but I don't feel like it'll hurt anything if I pull up one of my drawings really quick, what they look like before I send them to you. So I have my company's logo in the corner, contact information. I'm the design contact. Here's where I put my revisions. I use this information for when my installers are putting furniture in buildings, they can call me, and the client can use it for their reference. Here's where I put my boathouse, deck, and patio. And then here's the date. It's drawn by my initials. The plot date, that's good to have for a reference of which is the most current drawing. Project number, scale. In my case, I said not applicable, so you guys couldn't just scale it up and draw it that way. But there's a variety of ways to do a title block. This is something different. This is like a tier above, because let me check and see in your drawing if it works this way or not. So I believe for what they're giving us, so okay, so it is editable. So there's two that we're going to show you. The very basic in the book, an exercise that you'll do as far as your homework, where you just draw a title block and then you put text on top of it. Or there's this that's editable, which the book never teaches you how to make it because it's super advanced. So that's why these downloadable templates, which you can find a variety of them online if you want to try doing that, I'd suggest for your homework just using the one that loads in. But you can type in your file name, your revision dates, and let's see how it works on here, because I know how mine works, but I just want to make sure. Here's text options and height, so that'll change the sizes of things, properties, and colors. So if I come up to the file name and let's try and say Allison, I want to see where it kind of throws things in this drawing, if it really is editable or I'm just editing the block. Okay, so I'll show you the difference. This is what I thought was going on. When you double click in here, this is telling me information about the architectural block, but it's not revising anything. So when I go to mine, my company has set it up so that when I want to put any of that information into my title block, I simply change it out. If I change the drawing type and I said house 2, okay, it shows up immediately in my title block. So these are things that you can download from the internet where they're already set up like this. I'm not giving you any because it's not part of a basic CAD, but then if you use this drawing title block in here, later we'll talk about text, but very simply if you want to add text. So let's see what size this comes in at. This is the fun playing around with where you're at. So house 2. So the text that automatically comes in with your drawing, and you can tell under annotate standard, isn't that bad. You could select it if you weren't happy with it and go home and scale it up to be a little bit bigger or smaller and fill in all of the information fields on your title block. It takes a little bit more time, but it is basic AutoCAD. So feel free to explore by downloading on the internet other title blocks. For your homework, let's just stick with this automatically downloaded in, which again, if any of you are missing how I got to here, I came down to my layout tab and I simply right clicked and chose from template, we want to choose the tutorial iArch, whatever you want to say, and then click open, desize OK, and then it'll pull that in. So I now have 2, which I don't want, so I could right click and delete. So now that I have that desize layout, I could, and for my homework, what I want to do is initially say, well, this is my desize layout, double click or right click rename, but I have a bunch of different drawings, so I'm going to start with my core desize layout. Then I'm going to access the window, which I just figured this out. Like I said, I didn't have this to do for homework. It comes in automatically locked in the viewport. So you can lock and unlock a viewport so people don't tamper with it. I think it should be as easy as unlocking it. There we go. And now you can scroll and pan and do what you need to. So don't get hung up on that. Again, what happened was when I brought it in, the viewport was locked. So in the bottom right-hand corner, this little lock tool, I have to unclick it, and then I'm able to manipulate my model space. And to get out of it, I just unclick down here so I'm back in paper, or I double click in the negative space. But for what I was doing to show you your homework, because that's what I want to focus on instead of reading that book, is finding my core drawing and kind of centering it, coming down here and choosing a quarter. Then I'm going to either double click outside the space or come down and click that until it says paper. So now I have that set up. And then I'd want to enter the information. So I have house 2, and don't copy my information tonight. I'm just adding text to show you, you can fill in all of these areas, obviously not snapped like that. And if you have issues with that, you simply come in and move those over using your move tool. Whatever your first drawing is, I expect to be sheet 1. I expect them all to have at least different sheet numbers and then to be duplicated. So you fill in your information, add maybe a fun logo. In the notes, there's nothing really for you guys. That's quite a big notes field, but it works for what we're doing. So we've done the first part of our homework. We've created core desize layout. Now the nice thing is, once you fill in this information once, besides the sheet number, you should be able to copy this layout. So I'm going to right click, move or copy. When I left click, move or copy, I'm going to choose core desize layout because that's the basis for everything I want to build off of. And I have to click this button, create copy. So I left click and click OK. Now you'll notice there's a duplicated tab down here, and I simply can double click to rename it, or if I didn't do that, I could right click and rename and change it to my next drawing. So that will be, for me, I'm going to say reflected ceiling plan. Kind of go in the order that they were given to you. So reflected ceiling plan, size, layout, D. Okay. Oh, I want to make sure it says D size layout. I edited it and lost it. And backspace that. Okay. So now I have this duplicated thing, but I'm seeing something different in the view. I simply come in and I could come down here to model, find my reflected ceiling, more or less center it on my paper, choose 1/4 of an inch so that it's to scale, and double click out or click down here to get out. And look at what's great about that. It's carried over all of my information. Now I have them in both Core D and as well as Reflected Ceiling Plan D. I'd simply need to come in and make sure it said Sheet 2. And I believe you can change the order of these by dragging. Yes. So what I did just then, because I know this is going to come after in my packet, or that's how I want them to print, I simply came through and left clicked and held down, and see how it turns into a sheet of paper? I pulled it to the bottom and rearrange them. If you pull this back, because core should come first, it rearranged it to the front. So that's a good way for you to keep things in order as well, that the book does not show you. So I've almost completed my homework. There's multiple drawings left, but I'm getting the hang of this now. When I come back through, I would simply right-click, move or copy. Now it really doesn't matter which one I copy because they're the same as far as the title block goes. So just making sure I choose one or the other, checkboxing that create a copy, okay. And after I've done that, I want to rename this layout to be my next drawing. So I'm going to come through and I'm going to call it Site Plan. Site Plan D-Size Layout, and click off to get out of it. And now I have that with the information, set my sheet size or sheet number to 3 and drag it to the end. All right, so core reflected ceiling fan site plan, and then it should be, if any of you are missing this, oh, how do you get the text information into the area? Okay, so that was what I was saying was different about my intelligent title block versus these goofy drawn-in title blocks, which they're totally viable. It's just a lot more effort on our side, but this is, to make the other kind is very difficult. So when you come through and you want to add text, I simply went up to the text tool. There's multi-line and single line. And really you can pick either for what we're doing, although most of the time it'll be single line. And then when you're there, you can check what text style you're in by going up to the Annotate tab. And standard, I'm pretending I'm you, so I'm in just a normal drawing like you guys are that I pulled up from scratch today and set the architectural units. So I have standard text. And I was lucky enough that this 3/16 height looked good on the paper, so it should look good for you. And then I said if you want it smaller, probably maybe in here smaller, you could scale it, which I'll go over one more time. But I simply, now that I have my text, and you can't tell because I'm not, but I have my text chosen, I left click and my ortho's on, so it's going to do a nice straight line. And I left click again once I kind of pull over to the side, and I'll type, let's see, sheet 1. So interesting that, and we'll find this later if we get to text, the way they have it set up, when you're in single line versus multi-line, they're different sizes. So we could have, that's interesting that this was 3/16. Oh, it might have scaled it. But it's basically you bring in the text and then you could see when I went to type, so I just made a box. Here's the size up here. If I changed it to 1/4 inch and then typed, so it wants to default back because they've created their own text style, but it's so big I don't want that. I could come in and left click it and then come up to the stretch tool, which we used last week a little bit when we were bringing in an image. I know some people had trouble with that. So I left click stretch and I start from a base point. And you might want to turn your ortho off if it's not working. If it's annotative, it won't scale it. So that might be our problem, but it's interesting because, hold on, let me go in here and see what text style it was. Standard. So standard is not annotative, so we should be able to scale it. Then this one that I was in, when I double click to check the text style. Interesting. It's not just showing it up. So I'm going to try one more thing before I tell you wrong, because it had been working just fine like it's supposed to when I created this original words, and I want to make sure I troubleshoot it with you guys tonight before you do it at home. So if I had multi-line text and then I check my annotate and I have standard selected And then I come in here and I say house. Right now it's showing up larger. If I go to home and scale and I turn this off, wonder why it's not letting me scale anymore, but it had been letting me a minute ago. So I'm going to give it one more try at the scale. This might be what some of you were talking about in your homework, that you weren't able to do it. Let me try it on a different tab and see if that will work. So if I come into here and I type my text, style, let me try notes. You should be able to scale a text style like I just did moments ago. It's really throwing me off, but I'll be interested to try and figure that out as we go, and maybe as we go into text. So we might jump into that a little bit and talk about setting up text. It should have been as easy as when I did it earlier on the screen. I did the same thing. I came up to text, multi-line text, and simply selected what I wanted to do and put it in there. But it's now working differently. So I will have to get back with you. And if I can't figure it out tonight, then we'll leave the text off and we'll just do the title blocks for tonight. But let's see. I am going to really quickly go back to the Home tab. And I think now we've all got at least how to copy over and then how to bring in our title block that we want to use, how to size it. I do want to do the site plan really quick because it's different. So we made it to site plan and we come in and we left click and we find our site plan. So let's see how it looks with the title block, because I wasn't able to get this title block at home, so I want to see if it cuts off too much. Sad day. Well, I guess it is what it is though, because I don't want to have to force you to use e-size. It's even crazier. So I want to be able to, for your homework, see enough of the river that I know there's a river and at least the other side of the driveway. In case you didn't know what that is, it's a driveway. And also for your homework, go ahead and delete out the dimensions because they wouldn't be on the site plan. They're just for reference only. So make sure that they're cleaned up. I am going to keep mine, but I could always, if I had them on their own layer, turn them off. So going back to the site plan really quick, I do want to cover something about viewports that I skipped over. So viewports function, like I said, kind of like a rectangle that's smart or a line. They're just like a shape. We could copy it, change the size, change the complete look of it. They also are on layers. So if you have a viewport layer, which was nice, it came in with this title block. So you'll automatically have it once you bring that in. Every time you want to create a new viewport, oh, I'm just creating a nothing. If I want to go out to layout and then rectangular, I was going to create just a plain old rectangle. That would have really thrown you off. And I left click and I select. I want to make sure that I'm putting it on my viewport layer, because it helps us keep everything different. And then our layers, you can choose the viewport color, like it's just like anything else. So it'll print with that color around it, or it could print with no color at all. But it's fine for this because I'm trying to see that you use this template to keep it as it is color-wise, but make sure that if you add for any reason a viewport, which you shouldn't, it should just be this rectangle, then you'd put it on a new layer. Just like you're hatching, whenever you're hatching, put it on your hatching layer. That way we can go back and turn things off. If you get things on top of each other, we can get down to the nitty gritty of just the core drawing. And then in here, it's easier. You can turn viewports off, I do believe. So let's see if we come up here and we turn off our viewport layer, then it turns off the rectangle that's associated with it, and we have this nice clean line that you can see. Now, I was going to tell you something that they do not cover in the book. We've talked about before. It says Beth. I tried to change the names of the layout tabs, but I could not rename it like you did. Hold on, let me pull my chat out. Your box disappeared. By just adding the word core in front of the name already there. Can you show again, please? Yes. So, for instance, C size, because I'm not using it. If I right-click and rename, then you have to really be careful where your cursor goes, but I left-clicked in front of the C and didn't do anything, and then I typed. So, Allison, C size, and then I left-clicked out of it. It should be that simple. It shouldn't give you a hang up of deleting everything out of it. If you double click it, then you just have to, okay, good, perfect. Glad that that worked out for you. So then if I'm coming into my site plan, we were talking about what's the importance of printing. And I don't remember if I covered it, but turning layers on and off. So besides the fact that we turn that border off for now, if you go into layers while you're in here, it's different than actually getting into the model space, because right now we're in paper within here. So I'm in this little tiny viewport. I've got to keep track of that. I'm going to turn that back on so I can see my line of definition to know what to click in and out of. So I just go to viewport and left click on the guy. You shouldn't need to turn them off for your homework. So if you're afraid to do it, don't do it. But when I'm in this drawing, outside of it in paper space, nothing's going to happen. If I then click model and I'm messing around with this, what I can do is pull up my layers to the side. So I could bring up my layer properties menu and go into the drawing, and then there's freeze, which these tools control things in your model space. But then there's also viewport freeze. So when you're in paper space and then you're in model space in paper space, so let's just say in model space in paper space like I am now, and I use a viewport freeze, I can select a layer like hatch or, let's see, even core. And when I only turn it off to viewport freeze and then exit out of it, it'll turn off parts of things. And let me see, mine's not all fancy and on all the right layers in this version, I don't think, because this is an older version of mine. So like right now, you didn't see a lot of change. So let's find a layer that's really gonna change. Okay, a fern. Mine is automatically on that from copying it from the boathouse. So if I go back into the site plan and double click in this window, but then come up to layer manager, and I go into my viewport freeze, and then I choose a fern. Let's see if I can move this. It turns off everything seemingly in model space. If I double click out now, and that's funny, I hear myself doubled in another room, and I go into model space, it's actually on. So that's good for us because we can choose to have some drawings that have certain things on and some that have certain things off, but then not touch anything in our model space. So it's consistently the same how we last drew it. It's hard to explain because like for these things, we're getting rid of windows and doors and we want everything on. But for instance, I do install of cubicles and they have electrical in them. And if the guys have all these notes and everything else on, they can't see the electrical parts. So I turn off the pieces I don't want, which in the viewport, and that keeps everything on in here, and I can print those drawings, but then just have the electrical on in the other drawing. So it's really a handy tool. It's a hard concept to get your mind around, paper space and model space, but if I exit out of my layers and I go back into the site plan and I were to print this, it'll print exactly how it's showing up now. And then if I ever, for any reason, want to turn it back on, I just double click in my paper space model space and come up to the layer property manager and drag it to where I can actually get to it. And it's a fern. And if it's hard for me to see, I could select that line, cancel, and just like load it to be blue so it's easy to follow with my eyes over. I know that's hard for me to follow sometimes. And then simply unfreeze it and I go back and everything's on. So it didn't delete it. It's just like that light bulb, except in your viewport, it's turning it off. And it's leaving it okay in model space so you can go back for referencing things and keep your drawing as it was. All right. So that covers probably everything the book has to say about templates and then some, but I do want to try and figure out the text issue that we were having because in my drawing it was working, or even actually in our drawing tonight it was working for a minute, and then it decided that it didn't want to work any longer for us. So I'm going to see if it's something to do with our layers. So I'm going to come through and just choose a different layer than the viewport and try the text for a minute, not take up too much of your time. But let's see, boat. So it's still big. I'm going to come through and, oh, that's why, Allison, you were not choosing the right tool. Watch this be the only, there we go. All right, I just had a momentary lapse in judgment. So up here, I was thinking, I was not reading, I was just clicking, and I'm used to it being here and just clicked over here. So scale. So that was why it worked for me in the beginning, and then I clicked the wrong button. So then again, we haven't created a text style, which we hopefully will because we have another hour left. If you don't have one created and you have your standard in, which we came up and checked, and it's just standard, you could come in and create with standard text, pick a line and say whatever you want to say, blah, 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 and then let it go. Okay, it's too big. Because it's not annotative, that's a big thing to note. When we come in and want to scale it, click on scale and hit enter on the object. We could make it tiny or big and click when we're done. Now I know some of you are having trouble with scaling in your, oh wait Beth, I missed you. Tried to change the names of the layout tabs and we got that. Okay, then for homework, what is the length of the lines that go to the river? Oh, Joanne, I'm just now reading my chat. It disappears to the side. So for the river, I had given it as a block, so you could download it from the homework submission link and just use it that way. That's why I didn't give the length of the river lines. Oh, are you talking about the lines that connect the house to the river that I have shown, but you don't have shown yet? These lines, is that correct? Yes, okay. Well, it was kind of arbitrary. I didn't have the book that the students have for that, so I was trying to figure out where I want to put them with my model. So I wasn't going to add them or have you guys worry about that until we have to print these drawings for the final midterm or whatever, which is actually next week. So for now, you don't have that information, but I will give it to you. I just want to make sure it's accurate with the other students' book. But good question. You caught me. Okay, so let's see. Then I covered getting text in annotation scale you have on your screen. I think, Mary, we've covered the annotation scale a couple times. Okay, so then now that we figured out our text and how to bring that in, and then again, if you want to change it after you've said it already, you can still come up to here and change it. My tangent that I was getting on is I think for some of your homework, the issue was when you're in model space, And it's not always true. That's what's so difficult. There are times where I sound like a goofus on here because I don't know what I'm doing or something didn't act the way I wanted it to. Um, Sometimes it is just like that in CAD. My mistake on the button thing, but sometimes if you do a screenshot, for instance, does it even have snipping tool or snipping tool? Depends on your computer. And I click over here and I then want to paste it like I've taught you to do last week. And I paste it in here. And then I want to scale it. Are you scaling with the text with the zoom on the mouse? Oh, well, let's go back really quick. I can come back to this. We have lots of time. So find one with a lot of text on it. When I start with the text in the beginning, so I'll start from the very beginning, I left click and I'm just dragging a box to start the text, just like if you're in PowerPoint or anywhere else creating a text box. And I left click to finish, and then it gives me the size it's going to be. So just to start it, because I don't want to have a bunch of big text, I put a few letters like hi, and then I can go back and change the scale. So I left click out. Then I come up to scale, left click scale, left click the text, hit enter, and I usually pick the corner point. I don't have a snap on right now, but it might not even snap to it, but I just visually align my crosshairs up. And having a base point reference allows you to scale up and down. So once I left click, I don't click anything else. I'm moving my mouse up to the right and down to the left. But it is a finicky thing. That's what I was going to try and show you with the images. The text is seeming to work much nicer. I think, Joanne, it was you who was having an issue. Can you try the text? Are you able to scale that easier than a photo? I think it was you who had the issue. If not, then someone can correct me who's having trouble. I can't get a text box. Interesting. All right. So even when you come up to the text and you left click the icon and then you left click your point, your first point, it's not letting you do that first step. That's very strange. I don't know how to remedy that. I guess that would be something I'd have to look at with you during lab hours or maybe tomorrow when I'm home, but it should be as simple as like there is a difference between just like clicking text here, but once you click text in it, you know it's working because this ABC will pop up. And then maybe if you're having issues, turn your ortho off. No ABC. Very strange. I don't know how to fix that for you. But you have no ABC, but you do have this annotation panel, correct? It just isn't working when you click it. Okay. That is really weird. See, this is what I'm talking about. It is sometimes it's CAD, so I'll write that question down, and if anyone else has it, then I can try and figure it out or research it for you guys after hours. But for now, it should work like that. And I don't know if it's because you aren't in the right type of text. So when you go to annotate, are you in standard? That'll be my last try. Or are you on a different text? I'll let you type back to that. So I'm having success at being on the standard text and then going to my home and my annotate and clicking text and then left clicking to finish the box, typing, ending, scaling, enter, and then picking a point to scale about. And then once that's done, if you need to add words, you just add them. And there's a difference, obviously, between single text. This is the annoying thing about single text. If you did have a billion notes, it's going to stay one line. So you're going to have to keep copying it down. If you choose multi-line text, it's just that it's multi-line text. So you can start typing a lot of things and it lets you continue down to another line, and you can use the stretching of the text to pull it up. But then once you change the width, add more lines. And then you could also scale that, hopefully, if it is working correctly, to be multiple lines. So that's the difference. I was just suggesting single line because this is the information I want filled out, and it's all single line. And then for the sheet number, make it nice and big. So if your standard text is coming in at like that, that's great for a sheet number. We don't want it to be teeny tiny. We want it to fill this block right here. But don't do it sloppy. Move it and center it. And don't do what I do over here. Kind of align your text. Those will be things that I'm looking for. Use my ortho to align it. Turn my snap off. And eyeball it. It doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, if you want to draw a straight line, but just so that it's visually appealing in some way. So now that we've got the text figured out on that side as far as basic text tools, and then we have our layouts figured out as far as getting into them, uploading this template into the file, resizing our paper. Is there any other questions besides Joanne, who's struggling with her text, and I probably will have to look at her computer? Anything I need to review before moving on? Because for this week and kind of going forward, I'm hoping to implement your homework more into what I'm talking about instead of focusing on the book. So, okay. So you've basically seen me do a lot of the homework. Like I said, we have all these drawings that I didn't get to the special one, which is the fact that I had you guys flip your section drawings, and now when we come in here and go to set it all up and choose 1/4 inch, well, darn the luck, it's sideways. So what do we do for that? We could rotate our view and do it that way. So we could come up to the cube in here and rotate and then zoom in and then choose 1/4. And mine has this crazy screenshot in it now. And it's going to be a lot of wasted space because we don't have anything else on it right now, but that's okay because it's a PDF and not a real piece of paper, so you're not killing any trees. Then you change again the number. This is my, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4th. And it's my section drawing, so I might put that in the notes, section drawing, or project name could be section drawing. If you really want me to spell it out for you, I can fill it out that way. So this is obviously you and your address. You don't have to give me your real home address. I don't need to know where you live. And then project name and address. So we said this is going to be Boathouse. And then fake address. And then down here, project. I'd say here might be where we want to, I want to see if I can change anything about this block. Properties, text options, attributes. I just want to make sure. Okay, so we can't. I was going to say we could change this project, but let's pretend that that project says drawing instead. And so for our basic homework, just say what drawing it is. So for this, it's the section. And just put it in there, make it as tiny as it has to be to fit. So if it's reflected sailing plan, then just make it tinier and scale it down. But put that under there where the project is. Put the date you're turning it in and put the scale. Double click your text and say whatever you made your viewport be. So 1/4 inch Oh, here it's telling me, do you want to automatically stack this? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So that's just saying, do you want it to look like an actual inch, quarter inch? Then quarter inch equals 1 foot dash 0 inches. So that's what my scale is. And if you're, for some reason, aren't used to looking at that way, you could review it by double clicking and it'll show you exactly the way you're supposed to lay that down here in your viewport scale. All right, so that's the information I want over here, but I'm more interested in seeing how your title block is brought in. If you have an issue, again, email me about not having it available. I know my computer doesn't let me, but you should because you have the student version. So set up that drawing by rotating it. And then because we did that in our viewport in there, it didn't rotate my drawing. So don't, however, come in here. It's just like that freezing layers thing, how earlier I froze a layer from paper space and it didn't affect this. The same thing happened when I rotated. If I came in here and rotated it, it's going to rotate everything slowly but surely as it thinks about wanting to rotate. Come on, drawing. So it's going to rotate everything, and then when I look at my other layouts, oh, this is nice. You guys are lucky. I'm gonna have to show you in my drawing. So this blue layout, they have it locked. So even though I rotated it in the other view, it doesn't change it. But if you didn't have that, and I went in here in my normal person's drawing with my normal title block, it should rotate everything. I'm thinking core patio. Maybe it isn't because it's locked. Well, I'm learning right along with you. So you'll be okay either way, although you don't want to do that. You don't want to rotate it in your drawing because then you'd have to come in here after it's rotated in your drawing, model, and rotated. And so it defaulted back for you. That's interesting. 16 doesn't do that. It will rotate everything. I guess you're okay to rotate it if you want, but I'd prefer you come and do it in here because if you go to a newer version, it'll rotate everything as a whole and change all of your layouts. So that's pretty neat. Oh, I was going to check on something really quick, tangent for homework. Sometimes pictures give you issues when you're scaling them. Like here's a base point of the picture and it's huge, right? So this might be what happened to you people. So it's locked and it's huge. You can turn your ortho off, which should help. You can turn your snaps off. If it doesn't do anything, see, like the other day, I just scaled it, no problem. You might want to come in again and select it and scale. See how it's going to like something really big at first instead of little. It really is a trial and error about the pick point. So now I'm able to scale it, but is it letting me make it tinier? No. You can always set a scale factor instead of picking like this. So I could come down here and type 50, enter, and it will way tiny. It like scaled it way down. So that was too much. If I want to come back in and clipboard paste it, see if I can get that snipping tool. New, I'll do this. Clipboard paste. Oh, is it really big? Oh, it made it, I bet it made it big. Hold on, zoom. Extents. Oh, look, that's what it did. So I scaled it all right. I just scaled it big. So now if I want to come through and scale it, you could type, let's try 0.5, enter, and it starts scaling it down. So, but once it's so big, it is easy as doing its pick points and scaling it that way. So if you were really struggling, there's a weird way to do it. You can make it really big to scale, to have a pick point available to scale it down really small. I wasn't scaling it to any specific size. I don't know if that was what some people were struggling with. Like, how do I know this is 1/4 size? How did I figure that out? I didn't. What was great about it was, now my drawing's all ridiculous. What was great about the tracing is, so I want this mouse controller traced. I'm drawing 1-to-1, and then I can come in and scale this to be any size that I wanted. But the reality is that I'm drawing 1-to-1, so maybe it's better to think of it this way. I don't want to confuse you. So turning my ortho on, if I have a coffee table and it's 24 inches by 24 inches, I did keep scaling it down, the image. Best way to explain this. Using it, I scaled it down to be as close to my lines as possible, knowing that it was 24. So if I had my image next to it, I would keep scaling it down until the first line, whatever it was, my guideline matched one of the drawers to be 24 on the image, and then I would draw the rest of it because I knew it was scaled about one part of it. Oh, that's really hard to explain. Maybe I'll give an instructional video on how that scaling works, but it's just making sure you choose one part and getting that scale accurate at 1-to-1 to be 24 inches. So then when you go to print it, you can then draw your table down to be a 1/4 inch size, but accurate in an elevation. So I bet I will find for homework this week that some people didn't, and I won't mark off for it because the point was that you can trace an image, but that you didn't consider the actual sizes of things, you more just traced them in image instead of thinking of how you're going to scale it down. So maybe I'll better explain that because I can see the issue as I'm trying to re-explain it again. But I'm going to move on because let me show you on Blackboard. If we go into the class session, 6 should be up. Your quiz is in there. It should be available to you now. Topic outline, tentative covering text, you like that? Then homework and quiz. So PDF, plotting, template setup. Ah, that's what I'm missing. Okay, so I want these drawings, the core with no dimensions, the reflected ceiling plan with text only if we cover it in class, if not without text, the site plan and the section drawing in D-size PDFs. All right, and I think I say that up here. Plot the following drawings at a 1/4 inch equals 1 foot to a D-size layout with title block loaded in from CAD. That was that one that I've covered in class. You can rewatch it when I post the video. I should post it tomorrow morning at the latest because I just have to load it to YouTube tonight. Plot a zoomed in view, 1/2 inch equals 1 foot of furniture or a block that you have pulled in. Using the instructions in chapter 8 for a standard printer paper size, I was going to have you create a block. So I got to cover that really fast before we move on to text. So the not smart way, and even though the one that they brought in from the AutoCAD, the ARC example, it's not super smart, it is already laid out for you and it's set at the D-size paper. So it's saving you a bunch of time. But we don't always have that luxury. And if we were doing basic CAD, like what the book wants to do, in chapter 8, it tells you how to create your own title block for an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, exercise 1. So I am asking you to do that exercise, except you don't have to do the drawing that they're doing. Just create the title block dimension and put it on an 8.5 piece of paper. And all the steps are in there. I can kind of walk through it now. So I deleted out my 8.5 by 11s, not actually in this drawing. So I'm going to come in and new layout. I right-clicked new layout. Oh, what's my issue? I'm not in paper space, so I have to be a paper space. Notice that was a problem. So then I right click, new layout, and let me close all this stuff off of my screen really quick. It's adding them, you just can't see them. Well, I can't see them behind this box. So I have all these new layouts over here. Then I want to, let's see, page setup manager, this layout, layout 1. So by being active on that tab and then choosing page setup manager, I'm able to modify that one. It's highlighted. So I want to modify it. Oh, it's already coming in. So that's just a standard. It's 8.5 by 11. Unfortunately, it's not a PDF. So I need to change it to drawing to PDF. And it's fine to leave this at its whatever it's automatically choosing instead of the arc size. That's fine. And the landscape is great. So I'm going to click OK and close. Then in the book, I'm going to move this so I have some white space, and I can move it just like a shape, so I used my move tool. On 725, exercise 1 is where it gives you the dimensions for the title block. So it looks like it should be as easy as drawing that title block in the space. So if I turn on my ortho and my snap, and I come over, and I'm in tags and it's white and that doesn't help you. I'll choose core, so I'm drawing on something with a color. If I come over, it looks like 2.5, and then I come up 1.25, so that's 1.25 being shown on 725, and then I come over 2.5 because it's a rectangle. They always have you draw construction lines. I'm not a fan of construction lines. I usually just go through and offset all the lines. So I could come up to my offset tool, and it looks like the first thing that we're going to offset is 3/8. So down here I have to do my 3/8 inch and offset, then escape and offset, and then enter my next distance, which is 1/4 inch, offset, and continue through the dimensions that they have. Notice they have a break in the next two lines, so you'll have to pick from a midpoint and draw a line down the center of them. And slowly but surely, you'll get a title block in the lower corner where you can put your text, but you had to draw it yourself. So fairly simple exercise. As you continue through, you'll see that they create a layout for plotting, but really I'm happy with the 725. So I say 8. Let me go back to the homework because I was thinking of having you do a whole sheet set at first. So I'm going to edit this for you now and tell you the exact page of the exercise I want after it loads because computer here is slow. So I'm going to say all these drawings as I said I want them. And then a plot zoomed in view of a furniture or block using instructions on this page. Page 7-25. Exercises. Oh, there's multiple. We'll just say 1. Exercises 1. And not any other ones. I don't think I want you to do any other ones. Yeah. The other thing they have you do on 726 is add a border, but we don't use borders to our drawings besides if you bring in that entire title block and it has a border. So their borders kind of cut out the title block and put it on the outside, and I think that looks silly to have this picture framing effect of your drawing and then a title block in the lower hand corner. I'd rather just have the white space, to be honest with you. So I'm going to have you just do the title block, and then if I'm you and I'm coming into AutoCAD and my drawing that I'm working on my title block and I get through the first information, I'm not going to be super specific because this is just an exercise on, oh, if I have to do it. So we have our text and we'll say, I want you to cover certain information, but if I scale it, so exercise and scale this week, and move it up. So if you could just put, you know, boathouse, and then maybe the next line is the actual drawing type, so I can copy this down. And in that line, I'll put core. And then the next two, it breaks down even more. You could do the date and your name. So let's see how far it comes down, 3/16 inch. And I'll just pull it over. Ooh, it doesn't want to do that. I'm trying to cut corners, and because I'm doing that, it's not happy. So I could trim, enter, and mirror. 100 ways to do this. So then maybe come through and copy and scale this text smaller to be your name, Allison Green. Some of you have long names. You might just do your first name because this is just the exercise and working. So maybe my name, and maybe side adjust all these things so they line up with my name over here. And then over here I do the date because they don't tell you exactly what they want. So it's 2/18. Okay. Well, that's a case where we don't want that. /2016. And then down here, what am I missing? Revisions and things like that. Really, I'll be happy if you just put this much information. So watching this back, boathouse core, Allison Green, and then the date. And then come in, move your viewport back. So here's where they're talking about, oh, we have to have a viewport that looks nice and is a polygon, but go ahead and make it a rectangle. I'm not going to argue with you on that one. Turn my ortho off and drag it up. And then if you have any of your blocks in your drawing, so I'll pretend this is a block, I want you to just set it at 1/2 inch scale. So a different scale to show me you're not stuck in 1/4 inch and can't figure out how to click anything else. So left click 1/2 inch, and I will check your viewport scale, what it's locked to. And it can be anything. I know I had a student who didn't want all their blocks in her drawing, so just make sure that it's in 1/2 inch. It could be a door zoomed in up close if you need it to be, and you've deleted your blocks for some reason. And then print that to a PDF as well. So that's exercise 1 on page 725. That's another way if you had to draw it from scratch, you could just do a small title block really quickly for a client. Let me check anything else about this assignment, the template drawing. So create a template file with 2 layouts that you've created. This sounds daunting, but it's actually very easy. So I'm going to submit this and save now that I've corrected it for you. All right, so then when I come back into my drawing, I today have created the drawing that you have, although mine's named drawing 1. So it has in the model space all of the boathouse things, and then in my paper space tabs, all my layout tabs I should say, the layouts I've created, and hopefully you'll get to a point where you have all of these created, and that'll be great. What I want you to do is pay attention, please. Save as. Now yours doesn't say drawing 1. Yours probably says, let me save this as. All right, so Josie H and boathouse and whatever version you're on, or if you've some people have started to do their own thing. So assignment 6, you know, for session 6, and then the date, so 0.02 1816, but you're saving it as because you're about to make a big change. So you want everything you've worked on in this session to be saved. I'm not saving a new, like, or honestly for you, you want to save. So that's what I want to save for you, but we will save as in a minute. So like I have students who are saving as every week and then they have a new, completely new drawing, but then during when you're working on it at home, and I added a core. Once I have session 6 created, so I created this, hopefully when you start your homework, you create every week from the last time you worked on it, you do a save as and you say assignment 6, but it's still the same drawing. You didn't copy this into a new tab, you just have the same drawing saved as. So I had started with it as that. So then it will adjust. So Josie H. Boathouse assignment 6, I was working on it. Then I went through and I deleted this part of the building because my teacher wanted me to for that session 6, and I save normal. I don't need to save another drawing every change that I make because then you'll have 100 copies of it and that's not good. So always make sure to save normal when you make basic changes. Then at the very end, if you keep saving normal, you should have session 6 updated to the most recent. But for this session at the very end, so you saved as blah, blah, blah. What we're going to come in and do is create a template. So all we have to do to create a template is go up and save it as a template. But we don't want to have everything associated with our work, but we do want these layouts to use in another class, for instance, where they're D size or C size. So what we're going to do is come through and delete everything. Now make sure you have saved your work before you do this. So I just saved mine with the changes and I know it's safe somewhere as Josie H. Boat assignment. So I'm going to delete everything out. Zoom extents. I know some of you have weird stuff hanging out in the middle of nowhere. I don't. It was nice and clean in the middle, but you might have a line over here or a picture or whatever. You're using your space how you want to use it. Delete it all. Then come down here and get rid of anything you don't want. Like I have a C size and a D size. I really don't need a billion other tabs for future drawings because I just want the sizes. So I could delete, okay. Notice though I'm like, oops, I had a D size, but this one didn't have the title block, so I'll delete that out and keep this one with the nice title block. This one, oh, I might want that for future use. Okay, I'll save that one. I'm going to delete this one that's empty. And it's really up to you what template you want, but templates are meant to save information and settings. So a template will automatically be in architectural because that's how we have this set up when we go to save, and it will already have these tabs. So when I come up to save, this is where we do save as drawing template, and I can say I don't want it to be associated with the boathouse. That's why I deleted everything. So I go in front of the .dwt, it still needs its extension, and I can say template with DC layout. I mean, it really doesn't matter what you save it. It's for you to reuse. So I want to save it though somewhere I can find it. For me at school, it's going to be my desktop, save. And then I could describe what's in it in case I want a reference for me when I'm going to go to open it and hover over it. So I could say D layout, C, blah, 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 enter. And then it saves that information. So once that's gone, and I'm hoping it worked out. So here's my, ouch, drawing template. And it has these tabs already in it. And it's automatically set up with the units as architectural. So it's different than your drawing. It seems very similar. I mean, it's very similar to a DWG drawing, but it's meant to be a template you can load in things from and just start from this in the future for another class. You take kitchen and bath, come in and use the template with your things set up, with the title block in the corner already. It says all the work in it without having all your stuff in the background. So it's pretty simple. I just want you to create a template, save it somewhere on your computer, and then upload whatever you've named it as to the Dropbox on Blackboard so then I can view it and know that you made one. So those are your 3 homework assignments. And really, I don't think we're going to get to text, which is fine because we have a lot of, like next week is going to be covering the stuff we've glossed over, we haven't had time to get to, any questions that you guys have. So tomorrow I'm going to upload the video for the question about how I'm weighting grades. If you wondered about, I don't know if everyone's grade center is like that. I've never had to weight them. So right now they're just coming as your scores, and eventually I was going to weight them. So if I can do that in grade center, I'll check on that. But I guess it was left off of my syllabus, so I will provide you with the weighting for the grades, like how much a quiz is versus how much your homework and the final project is going to be. And we don't really have a midterm in this class. We just will have one final project, and it's a culmination of all of your drawings together in a presentation. And it'll be more so a presentation once we get into SketchUp, because we can have some 3D that goes along with it and create a nice format using that. So I'll add those things for you, but I think I've covered all of the homework, which will make that easy for this week. And if you have any questions, you can email me, or I'm available during my lab hours. Are there any questions before I go about things that aren't working? Joanne, I will work with you on your text possibly tomorrow because I have no idea why it wasn't working for you.
I have a question real quick.
Oh my gosh, Matt, you talk. I always love it when there's people that I'm never going to hear from. Okay, go ahead.
Um, there is a block that it will not let me delete
All right.
on here.
Can I share your screen? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so I'm going to come through and screen. If it lets me, it is giving me trouble. And drag this and change you to the presenter. Yes. Okay, you should be the presenter now.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so it will not let me delete this block right here.
Okay. Have you tried changing its layer in
No.
model space? Go ahead and get back into model space. And then when you hover over it, go ahead and click that block so I know what layer it's on. So it's on A-Fern, and can you zoom into that lock? I think it's locked. So up above your mouse in the layers panel, see the
Yeah.
lock? I'm pretty sure it's turned to lock. I just can't see super close in. Unlock it. So click the lock and then
Oh,
go ahead and delete your block.
all right. Thank you.
You are welcome. Hey, I'm glad I got to hear from you. All right, so now I do have a little bit of time left since I'm moving text next week, so I'm going to take the presenter back from him and give it to Joanne and see if we can figure out her text issue in case any of you are also going to struggle with that same problem. Oh, you figured out? Oh, yay. Isn't that great? Okay, so that's 2 things that are solved. Um, did anyone else have a question? Perfect. All right, I might go ahead and let you guys go early tonight. I will have that video up for you tomorrow, but really watch the video back for instruction on the layout tabs because I didn't have those available to me from home. So just enter the information, make up what you need to, but make sure it does look neat and tidy. Oh, and here, I guess wait, don't leave. So making them PDFs, I kept saying, and then we make it a PDF, but you never really saw that. Um, if I have a drawing, I guess I will have to use mine because I deleted everything else out of my other one. And then I want to go to print it. Okay. So I choose that drawing to PD. I went to plot, it's at the top, and I choose drawing to PDF again. So in here, and I choose my size, which is fine actually. That's what it is. It's just zoomed in, 8.5 by 11. So it should default to the size we've set as the tab. Oh, I'm sorry. I never did start sharing my screen again. Okay, thank you. So let me go back again. Here. When I come up here to the plot in the upper left-hand corner in the quick access toolbar, I left click it, ignore the note, you won't have that. And then I choose drawing to PDF, and it'll come up with whatever the size of the paper is that we've created. So if it's E or C or D, it'll say that here because we've already chosen that. We just have to choose the printer to plot it. Then I click OK. Then wherever you want to save these drawings that you're going to be sending me, I'll do it to my desktop so I can find it to show you. Save. It'll think, it'll process it. I'm sure most of us have made a PDF, just not from CAD before. And once it's done thinking, usually at work for me, it will pop up as a PDF on my screen. So it's odd. Let me try it over here and make sure it's just not my drawing. Drawing to PDF and Arch D. Not going to center the plot. You don't have to change any of these things for yours. This is just set. We didn't set it up at all. So then I'm going to click OK and then save. Oh, I can't print PDFs, so that's why. I got my PDF thing installed, but not the actual printer, it appears. So you should have a PDF viewer because it was part of what was required for the class under your syllabus was to have that, I believe. I hope you would have that on your computers. If not, let me know and we can talk about installing that. But what would happen is it would go to your desktop, it would pop up on your screen and show you your drawing as you had it as a paper that you could send to me as a PDF. So just make sure it's sent to me as a PDF, not as a drawing. Each individual sheet should be sent to me as a PDF. Okay? And with that, you may go. Thank you, everybody.
Allison,
Uh-huh.
oh, I was typing. I have gotten everything done
Okay.
except I've got the photo or the picture of the dresser that I'm going to do,
Uh-huh.
but I haven't drawn it yet.
Okay.
I'm going to try and do that tonight and get it turned in, because I felt like I pretty much did, last week and this week.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been trying really hard to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
So if it gets too complicated, it may fall together pretty simply for me. But if I don't get it in tonight, I'll get it in tomorrow morning.
Okay. That's fine.
So, but I'm trying to get it in so I'm not late on this one.
That's okay. Just make sure that you turn in the other things like as they were, like if you had the section and reflect, whatever you didn't have done that needed to be done, unless it was just a whole week, so like an actual assignment in itself, like blocks and layers, it had to be certain things that you're turning it in pieces instead of waiting. So, because I can grade, the parts that were due at different times.
Okay, well, I did all of, was it 4 that I had to catch up on?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so I turned all of that in, and I have
Can I start?
everything else done. Now, my question is, where do you want the dresser in the picture? It's not going to be on a regular drawing, is it?
Oh, where do I?
Do I just put, I'm not sure how to send it to you. Do I
Oh
just
yeah, it's
put it
on your
on?
regular drawing. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's just off to the side
Yep.
like the other stuff was off to the side.
Yep, just pull it anywhere like the blocks, yep, and then just keep it out of your
Okay,
view.
okay.
All right.
I will do that. So I can go ahead and turn in what I've got right now and then just add that and turn that in
Yeah.
if I can get it. Okay. Then I will do that.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you, Allison.
Yeah, no, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.